Many topics to get through today, ladies and gentlemen. Everything from the academy game to Champions League football, encouraging or lack of encouraging words from former players, and the return of Premier League football. Phil Brown, how are you doing, my friend? It's been too long.
Yeah, it's been too long, mate. Life got in the way. We've got both got busy lives, but it's good to be back on here with you.
Absolutely. It's always a little bit of a break from all of the harsh realities that we encounter on a daily basis to be able to sit down and talk about Manchester United for an hour, my man. You've been keeping well outside of everything else that's going on?
Yeah, I think fucking sitting here talking to a volleyball, Colin Wilson. It's been that long since you played a football match. I feel like I'm stranded on a desert island somewhere. Jesus, how long's it been? I think
24 days, I think, from the end of the last ball being kicked to when we actually line out against Leeds on Monday. It's
I
24
think,
days.
think you've had a new hair dye since then, mate.
A new hair dye. I'm lucky enough. It's just going grey around here. I'm keeping the
Lucky
colour up
bastard.
top. It's just going grey around the beard. That's the unfortunate thing. As I say, look, we've lots of stuff that we can speak about. It's not naturally unprecedented that even when Manchester United aren't playing football, that there's plenty of things to talk about.
Yeah,
Let's start with the academy game because it was
yeah,
pretty interesting a couple of days ago. The under 21s,
yeah.
they looked like everything was absolutely going to plan. The Premier League quarter-final international cup competition against Real Madrid. 2 up, within 15 minutes, Jack Moorhouse, Shea Lacey. Looks like everything is absolutely rosy. And that the decision that was taken between Carrick and all of the coaching team to go with a strong team was going to pay dividends. And unfortunately, it absolutely fell off a cliff. And we saw a 4-2 defeat after extra time. It was a bit sickening, wasn't
It looked exactly like a Champions League game. It had
it? Mm.
exactly the same format where United start well, do really well, let Real Madrid into the game with some inexplicable error, and then end up losing the game because at 2-0, they were in complete control. Real Madrid didn't threaten at all. Shea Lacey with a lovely penalty, by the way, has certain swagger and confidence. Although I don't think he put a performance in that says I should be in the first team. And then, of course, Jack Moorhouse is just world class finish. But Shaun, at that level, it's really all about learning lessons. And the lesson you learn against teams like Real Madrid is you have to concentrate. You can't switch off, and mistakes get punished. And I think when I was watching that game, I'm like, maybe the lesson that you learn from losing that game is more valuable than what you would take from that game if you eked out a 2-1 win.
Yeah, it's a fair assessment. It's something that we've discussed multiple times about what you learn from the grassroots up and all the
Yeah.
way through the academies. And that, I mean, ultimately at the end of the season, if United lifted honours in that competition, it's what does it actually stand for? But if you've got someone like Shea Lacey, Jack Moorhouse, even any of the Fletcher boys coming through and actually giving credible performances, even Tyler Fredrickson was captain on the evening as well. If you get those guys actually learning, building confidence, that can make them credible parts of the first team. And that's ultimately what Carrick and all of the rest of the coaching team are striving towards.
That is exactly what youth football is about. And professional game is completely contaminates youth football, and you see it from all the way down. You're now seeing teams at under 10 level having 10 players on top of the goalkeeper from a corner, which is just completely insane. When you're at youth level, your job is to make each individual player better, right? Not to have a serial winning football team. So many times we'll see clips on YouTube of teams that are under 12, 25 passes, then scoring a goal as if that's something to be impressed about. Like, that's great if you're at professional level. But when these kids inevitably, when you're under 12, under 13, under 14, you keep progressing, you're not going to be able to do that in the next team you join. Right? That's collective. Your job is to make each individual player better. If you have a youth team that wins the youth cup 4 or 5 years in a row, but none of those kids become pro, that's a failure. If you have a team that finishes mid-table, but 2 or 3 of those players in your academy become first team players, that's a successful youth team. And Nick Cox was talking about this on Talk of the Devils. And I think this is something that gets missed quite a bit with youth coaches because they're trying to emulate Premier League coaches, keeping kids on a bench for bringing you in 5 minutes to go. Totally insane that people do that with young kids. Um, uh, so To me, I think very encouraging. There's a couple of players in there that I think will. I don't think they're ready for first team football, Shaun, at United, but they look very, very encouraging.
Well, you know, you said a lot of things there, and I know Adam Lawrence for years, and
Brilliant coach.
the whole idea, yeah, fantastic coach, and the whole idea from very small kids up to late teens, early 20s is that all of the coaching team want to be able to create good human beings before
Yes.
anything else. You know, obviously they're trying to harness talent, raw potential, turn it into something that's credible that can be utilized at a senior level. Ideally, if they're not cutting the grade to make it at Manchester United, that they can go on and have a professional career elsewhere. But first and foremost, the message that has been relayed to me for years and years and years at Carrington is that we want to develop good human beings, good boys that can go out into the world and be a positive member of society. And that is something that just stands to this football club all of the time. It's something that goes under the radar across social media and various conversations through different podcasts as well, because these are wonderful coaching teams at every level of the academy. And while so many people get fixated on the results of the under 18s and the under 21s, ultimately speaking, we just want to have good guys. And if we can get one or two of them every single year that start coming through, then that is the hallmark of an absolutely stellar academy, is it not?
I'm looking at the life lessons I give my kids in my
Mm.
academy, right? And it's about the biggest reason why people fail at anything in life has nothing to do with ability. It has to do with what's upstairs. You can build a Ferrari with great wheels, great aerodynamics, great engine, but if the driver's inebriated and hits the wall, it doesn't matter. The driver, of course, being what's between your ears. Once you get to a place in life where you're not the best player on the pitch, you know, when you're a young player and you have exceptional talent that gets to that level, you're the best player on the pitch till you get to about 16. Then everybody at that level is as good as you. Now it's about your inner dialogue. Do you trust yourself? Do you have imposter syndrome? A lot of kids come from broken homes, from drug abuse, sex abuse. They're ashamed of poverty, physical, and they have imposter syndrome, and they don't believe they're good enough to make it. How many times have we seen average players have a 15-year career, but we see someone like a Ravel Morrison who has sensational talent? You know, you see this in every sport. Aaron Hernandez in NFL, they just completely self-destruct off the pitch because they weren't nurtured mentally. I see coaches at youth level screaming at kids, you know, when they make a mistake, and it's just a total ignorance of human psychology. Like, how does a child learn when you take? It's not the mistake; it's how they respond to the mistake. There's this concept that if you're not hurting, you're not experiencing pain, you're not learning, which is just total nonsense. I think that making sure we nurture young kids to be able to deal with social media pressures, life pressures, that is the biggest metric when it comes to evaluating whether a player is going to make it or not.
So, allow me to elaborate then and really broaden what we're discussing, because there is a talking point that we need to get to, as much as I really don't want to. We're speaking about the essence of Manchester United's academy and the integral factors about raising good human beings and being able to prime them with all of the tools to be able to bat away the inevitable sensationalism and skepticism that comes side by side with being a Manchester United footballer. When you have individuals that have gone through that academy and been lucky enough to generate a professional career with Manchester United and deliver us some of the most memorable moments that we've actually had, does it make it that little bit more surprising then that we continuously see ourselves speaking about the likes of Paul Scholes and Nicky Butt going on and having their conversations with Paddy McGuinness, going through standard stuff to kind of kill time that you see with these podcasts when there's no football on, about would you keep or would you sell? But then looking to fixate that and to speak about Lenny Yoro and Patrick Dorgu, who are 20 and 21 years of age, haven't had the grace and the leisure of coming through the Manchester United Academy and learning how to deal with everything that you have mentioned a moment ago. And instead of actually fixating on the fact that, look, these guys are here between 12 to 18 months. They came as teenagers. Well, at least Yoro did. Yoro didn't even get to play under the manager that signed him in the first place. And not only have they had to overcome English media, not only have they had to overcome the criticism that comes with playing for Manchester United, but they both had injuries that they've had to contend with. And while I think it's fair to say neither of them have tore up the ground and redefined what it is to be a young footballer joining Manchester United, Euro has had a lot of good moments. It looks like there's been moments where maybe it was getting on top of him, but he appears to have learned from it. You've Patrick Dorogu, who had to redevelop his entire characteristics as a footballer and redefine what he is, because obviously he was signed to play under Ruben Amorim, and now he's trying to redevelop himself in a different system, a 4-2-3-1. And prior to his injury, Phil was named the January Player of the Month for the club. So at what point does the criticism of somebody like Paul Scholes and Nicky Butt need to be taken into a wider consideration? Not necessarily saying that they're not entitled to their opinion, but the damage limitations that can be taken from the danger of their words and the inevitable agendas that can develop thereafter.
Yeah, it's a bizarre position because it's really disappointing. You were talking about Paul Scholes, who's a club legend, Nicky Butt, who was above average player, let's be honest, right? Austin gets thrown into the class of 92, but he wasn't a great player, but he was also involved in United's academy. You'd think he would know better. Clearly, there's a personal vendetta against the football club. Ed Woodward never wanted to employ them in key positions, partly for this reason. And you can see a concerted, coordinated messaging from Keane, from Gary Neville, from Paul Scholes, from Nicky Butt, all these players that clearly have some sort of fractured issue with their previous employer. That's fine. But it's what the rationale that they're using to justify this. The commentary on Luke Shaw, best left back in the world. I mean, he's never been the best left back in the world, but then sell because he doesn't play enough games. He's been, how many games? I think he's played almost every game this season. Mm-hmm. Like, what are you talking about? He doesn't play enough games. He's been 27, just 27, 28 games. I think he's played this season thereabouts. He's been, I think, with the exception of one game, if they're played 31, I think with the exception of one game, he hasn't played. I mean, that's not the rationale you use. Roy Keane recommending Eddie Howe based on what? And sell Lenny Euro. Okay, in replacement for who? What other top-class centre-back is obvious that you can go out and get and bring in? Everyone's struggling in that position. Real Madrid wanted Lenny Euro. He's an exceptional young defender. He has ups and downs like all young defenders do, right? I don't understand. It sounds silly for someone like me to be criticizing the likes of Paul Scholes and Nicky Butt, but it's hard for me to give any credence to the things that, the commentary over Lisandro Martinez, and then the commentary when United lost Newcastle, as if there was some sort of gloating in that you've been shit the last 5 games, and then that's just petulant childishness. It's like, okay, well, one thing we know for sure is that responsible commentary is not something you're aiming for. It's really disappointing. This is one of the reasons why Shaun, the United job is so hard and why it's so hard for young players. Let me put it like this to you, my friend. If United had spent circa $500 million last summer, I don't care if it's Alex Ferguson, who'd won European Cups and multiple league titles. If he was having the season Arne Slot was having, right? Sky Sports would be contacting they would be contacting anyone that they could get their hands on through a seance to get commentary on what's going on at Manchester United. And this would be a national crisis. Ruben Amorim was slaughtered for this. And he didn't spend a fraction. Eric Ten Hag had to face-to-face sit-downs with Gary Neville after Brentford, right? After Brighton, 2 games in. What's going on? We've almost habituated Liverpool losing as if it's not a big deal. United have never been afforded that courtesy. So United are sitting 6 points off Man City. I brought up a point on this podcast a week or so ago. It's the last time a major Man City signing came off. United get panned for their recruitment, and rightly so on a number of occasions, Shaun. But use the same standard and apply it to everyone else. Why isn't City getting panned for theirs? Michael Carrick is a caretaker manager within 6 points of City, and Michael Carrick hasn't been able to sign a single player. I mean, this is... Why are we not seeing the same standards applied to everyone else?
Well, I think there's a professional answer I could give you, and there's a supporter's answer I could give you, and maybe somewhere in the middle they'd both meet along the fact that paper never refuses ink when it comes to Manchester United,
Of
and
course.
you
That's
know,
a good thing, yeah.
regardless of how big Liverpool are, it's not going to, like, you can have any sort of banter back and forward. No one is going to disregard the fact that Liverpool are a big football club,
But where's the
but
Liverpool players doing podcasts laying into
no, no,
Shaun?
no. But see, the point of the matter is that even though Liverpool are a big football club, there's a difference between being a big football club and being Manchester United.
Yes, you're right.
And that is, it's the standard of things. Like, you're speaking about criticism and a lack of it for Arne Slot and for the signings that come in. I mean, look at Florian Wirtz. I mean, he broke a British transfer fee. Alexander Isak came in, did nothing, got injured. Yet you've got somebody like Harry Maguire who has just signed on at the football club for at least another year. And name a player within the Liverpool squad, even through their difficult period before they started receiving success, that received anything close to the public scapegoating that Harry Maguire received, to the battering, the daily abuse, the ridicule, the constant negating his transfer fee towards whatever it is or is not that he's achieving on the football field. His own supporters booing him off the field in Dublin and in Australia.
Honored
No,
here, by the way.
yeah, and nobody gets this type of criticism. Yet, like you're saying with Liverpool, Arne Slot comes in, he wins the league, surprisingly, with Klopp's team using Klopp's system. And then when he tries to redevelop it and invest 500 million, he's given a pass, and somehow individuals start to talk about how this team is in transition. Now, with the very, very best of respect, even Jamie Carragher has thrown out some absolutely ludicrous claims about how the level of football is too easy for Mr. Van Dijk, who is, by all accounts, not the best Dutch defender in the Premier League, let alone the best defender in the Premier League. So there's just a difference. And yeah, like that saying, the paper and never refuse ink. Picked that up off my father, I think, when I was in my early teens, and I've always kept it with me because it's a fantastic saying.
I'm
And
plagiarizing that.
oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It's very good, and it's so, look, it's true, Phil. It's true, and like, you take Harry Maguire, and like I just mentioned him a moment ago, it's a fantastic coup that we've been able to keep him for at least another year. Because what so many people jump to social media thereafter and start critiquing and criticizing Manchester United's decision to keep him, because apparently it's showing a lack of forward thinking and a lack of,
I
we'll
see.
say, proper progression. Can you imagine a summer where that dressing room lost Casemiro and Harry Maguire in one go when you're
You
trying to
know what that
redevelop a
is?
squad? Hmm?
People just want a new signing.
Yeah,
They want a new toy,
yeah.
right? And Maguire feels a bit like, you extended the lease on your car, right, for another year. It's not sexy. But what we're seeing here, Sean, is we're seeing players that want to play for Manchester United. Cunha, you look at all the signings United have made, Boomer, all that, they all had other choices, but they wanted to come to Manchester United. Harry Maguire, how many players do you see take a pay cut? Liverpool, Trent Alexander-Arnold didn't do that, right? Virgil van Dijk, if there's one positive that comes with Liverpool's bubble, it's that the players start to believe their own hype, their own media. I mean, Virgil van Dijk walks about like football should say thank you to him for playing. I mean, seriously, I look at him and going, this is a player that believes his own hype. And now the Dutch aren't exactly known for their humility either, right? To be fair.
Are
But
you going there again?
I'll have a little bit of no. I actually love them as people, but we have certain characteristics as well about us. To be fair, that are on the money for the most part. But I'm looking at Van Dijk. They start to believe their own press, right? I mean, some of the stuff that comes out of football club, Arne Slot saying referees should know this is Liverpool and we don't do that sort of thing. I mean, that is fucking insane, right? Complaining that other managers pick different teams to play Liverpool. I said this back then, Mike, if I'm a Liverpool fan, I'm worried about that, because if you think that's the reason why you're losing, carry on, right? But United, you don't get that. There's no Liverpool players going after. I mean, Jimmy Carragher's traded a couple of times on Mo Salah, and it caused huge ruckus. And he's the only player, ex-Liverpool player, who, by the way, Gary Neville should learn from and how to commentate on your old football clubs. I expect some bias there. Gary Neville's incapable of that. But you look at that and you're going, Manchester United is a whole different animal. What annoys me about it, though, Shaun, is that United as a football club, one thing they could learn from Liverpool is Liverpool go on the offensive. Their fans go on the attack if you are caustic with your criticism of them, right? They don't like it. They have a cult aspect. United feed the negative monster. United are acquiescing with outlets that are major contributors to that abuse that Harry Maguire suffered, which caused him to get bomb threats, right? And we've seen it with Marcus Rashford and other players where they're, imagine your employer is feeding information to someone that's persistently abusing you on social media. I'm sorry, I would have a broken relationship with my employer. How do you foster a positive collective atmosphere inside an organization that's actively contributing towards your mental your mental decline? I mean, I just don't understand that and what dividend to that is, and that has stopped since Ineos came in, to be fair. But pre Ineos, Manchester United were some of the most major contributors to that milieu, to that abuse.
No, it's a valid point, and it's something that I've reported on for several years. But another thing that I'll add to what you're saying about how United could take a leaf out of Liverpool's book, I'm not saying that the entire supporter base of Liverpool, Chelsea, everybody else is on board with one another. But I think it is fair to say, especially from a social perspective, and social footprints are nearly the most important factor in any fan base in modern day. And the Manchester United social fan base and the footprint, it's so toxic. There is such a divide in the supporter base that there is just continuous debates, arguments, agendas being formulated within the fan base that then sears into the dressing room and sears into the football club, and it adds to this toxic environment that's there. I mean, there is things that can be taken from Liverpool and other football clubs in the Premier League about how you can approach everything from officials and how you can deal with internal matters. Ultimately, it all boils down to what actually occurs on the field. And, we won't get off Liverpool without talking about yesterday evening in the Champions League.
Mm.
Did you catch the game with Paris Saint-Germain?
I saw the highlights. I was actually was watching the Barcelona game. Tuesday I was watching the United Real Madrid game, but yesterday I was watching the Barcelona game. But I saw the highlights.
Yeah, well, I mean, even if you looked at the highlights and if you looked at the statistics after, you're talking about a side that, I mean, once again, there was a lot of questions about the selection with Salah being left out and Slot having to explain that after. But this is a Liverpool team, this all-conquering Liverpool team that wasn't going to fear anybody in the continent over two legs. They didn't manage a shot on target, Phil. And like getting away from them because we've given enough on them, but focusing on Paris Saint-Germain and focusing on Luis Enrique. The one thing that I find really defining about that team, and I think it is probably the greatest hallmark of what Luis Enrique brings to a football team, every single one of those players are clued in and giving 100% to the task at hand. Every single one of them buy into the vision that is at that football club under Luis Enrique. And to me, that is the greatest testament to both man management and having tactical acumen as well. Because what he is able to do on a football field is just, it's absolutely breathtaking at times.
Everything goes forward. No square passes, no backward passes. They defend with the same aggression with which they attack. And Luis Enrique is notorious about that. You can tell everything about a team and their environment, their atmosphere, their camaraderie by how they defend. Because it's the same with anything in life. You can tell someone's commitment to any particular objective by how they do the things you don't want to do, right? Because it's easy to do this. It's easy to attack as an individual, but you can't defend as individuals. And the way they almost that 3-second rule to get the ball back, and then they have street footballers, right? Kvaratskhelia is a street footballer.
He's such a good player.
So we don't have many of these players left, Shaun. This is what excites me about JJ Gabriel. He's a street footballer. Lamine Yamal's a street footballer. These are players that we were gifted by the gods that are an exception from the paint by numbers coaching that produces the same players with little variance year after year after year because they're not allowed to have that individual expression. Kvaratskhelia is Georgian, his name. So thankfully in the likes of Tbilisi, they don't have this helicopter parenting where everything is coordinated and scheduled and no kids allowed to have creativity outside of coaching out there. Thankfully, we still have places around the world where they don't try to confine kids to these narrow parameters of coaching and everything is micromanaged. And then this is the dividend. They can attack you in so many different ways. Dembele, of course, is won the Ballon d'Or, which I don't think he's a Ballon d'Or level player, but they've so much quality. Vitinha in behind. They've
João
got
Gomez.
they have so much quality. Neves, everything. You're looking at that team going, they're young, and that is a different team than the Mbappe, Neymar, built around these exceptional individuals. Messi, it's very, very good individuals, but not at the level of a Messi or an Mbappe, where everything is about them. You see a collective team spirit, and they struggle to win a Champions League under anyone other than Luis Enrique, and I think they look favored to do it again.
They certainly do. It's going to take a hell of a lot to beat that team, but that almost an essence of everything you've said almost generates the fundamental worry I would have about bringing somebody like Enrique to Manchester United. Not because I think he's not the greatest coach in world football, because he is, but he is very much the definition of a systematic manager. He's a systematic football coach, and he requires a buy-in from every single member of the squad. How much time is he going to get at Manchester United to be able to install all of those beliefs and get everybody singing from the same sheet, as well as getting the required investment that he needs for that team? I just don't see him being able to deploy his beliefs while contending with the continuous agenda and the media narratives that would exist for any Manchester United head coach. As you said, Erik ten Hag was there for 2 games and he had to sit down and speak with Gary Neville. I don't think Luis Enrique gets the time that he requires to be able to install this, because let's be honest, at Barcelona, he created great stuff. He went to Paris Saint-Germain. It's not like he was taking over a side that came 15th last season. So you come to Manchester United, it's a totally different dynamic.
I think one of the things that he benefits from in France is the financial differential that PSG have with other clubs. You have competitive balance in the Premier League, so it's hard to build a squad that's that much better than everyone else's because there's financial parity. I mean, Bournemouth have a bigger budget than AC Milan, so you really need that differential, which a lot of clubs have tried to create through streaming rights and what have you, that allows you to bully smaller clubs into selling you their better players. They get that in Paris. They also get a league that helps coordinate the schedule, the domestic schedule, to help them in the Champions League. But these are all micro differences, Shaun. You take a look. I mean, Liverpool certainly can't complain about spending power, right? And I mean, I think Liverpool spent more or close to it than the entire Serie A last season, right? Which just gives you an idea of, it's absurd for Arne Slot to come out and say, yeah, but half of these players aren't available. Like, what are you talking about? You built the squad. But what it shows you, Shaun, in my opinion, is what really matters at that level is how you manage people. So many people that have never played professional football think that what's happening on a training ground is what happened when they played football. Like, Kvaratskhelia and Dembele are not dribbling 3 cones, and having a shot. You're not going to make them much better footballers. You're working on tactics. You're working on things that you apply in the games. You're not, okay, we need to make you a better dribbler. They're already set. There's small incremental differences you can make in a player at that level by different decisions, but you're not going to teach someone at that level how to take a corner, right? They know all these things. So it's about, how do you manage egos? How do you manage people? At PSG, it was a football club that was set up for glamour more than anything else. Beautiful, Paris, it's got all the glamour. Everyone wanted to go there for the money, for, the lifestyle. Then you take that out of a football club, you get people that are more interested in what happens on the pitch. And that comes from a coach who understands how to manage those people, who gets their respect. But also, Shaun, and this is a major factor, anyone that's ever worked in a business knows that there's a million reasons why a business failed. And a top class manager isn't always the reason why. There are so many other contributing aspects to a business and their success that have to work and have to have exceptional people in those particular areas so a manager can be successful. If any of those other aspects, those other divisions of that company are not up to scratch, no manager can succeed. So United have to be a football club where a manager can succeed. I think they're getting close to that.
Absolutely. And as I said at the very, very start, 4 days, I believe, is all we have to wait now, isn't it? 4 days till Monday.
Monday.
And the return of Premier League football, my man, that would be 24 days since Manchester United kicked the ball in anger, and presents the opportunity that so many people are bypassing now. Obviously, it's been confirmed that fifth place is going to get Champions League, which we were pretty sure that that was going to be the case anyway. But Manchester United now have an opportunity going into this home game against Leeds on Monday to build further ground on Villa, Chelsea, Liverpool. Chelsea obviously play Man City. It's going to, ideally, they both drop points. You know, it'd be fantastic if they did that. But you've got an opportunity after what I think is pretty much an unprecedented break in football for Manchester United to be able to go out there to make a real impact, Phil.
You know what it reminds me of?
What's that?
Remember the start of COVID? Whenever there was, and you were watching, Kashmir Antlers versus Nagasaki Grand Passit, right? Any match would do. You didn't know the scoring. One of the beautiful things about living in America is my girlfriend doesn't know I'm watching a match from a year ago. I'm like, oh, just watch the match here, love, right? She has no idea that this is United haven't played for 3 weeks. Otherwise, she'd be asking me to do
You're saying one of the beautiful things about living in America. You think it's any different here?
Yeah, well, I don't know. It's been a while since I've had to pull that bullshit off, but I'm sitting there with an American girlfriend watching, the Manchester United from about 3 years ago. I'm just watching the match I love is just on because otherwise I'm going to be asked to do things I don't want to do. So it's been like the start of COVID where I'm watching any football match because it's just this, starvation of entertainment, and you realize how important United are to your, to your equilibrium, to your happiness. So, by the way, way too many Monday games, but the price United have paid for getting knocked out of tournaments is just unbearable. And 3 weeks is a long time, Shaun, in football. 2 weeks is about as long as you don't really want any more than that in between games, because 3 weeks you start to have atrophy. And you're looking at that going, I'm not sure what they expect from United, whether that 3 weeks will help or whether it's too much or whether it's a hindrance. I don't know.
Well, obviously they have their intensive training camp that's going on in Dublin at the moment.
And warm weather camp?
The warm weather camp, yeah. You can't just see it over my shoulder. But I mean, I was supposed to be up there, but as you know yourself, I got hit with a serious dose of food poisoning 2 days ago. And I was not in a good way after it. But all of the pictures and everything I'm hearing from colleagues there, seemingly all good humor, everything good camaraderie. They seem to be enjoying themselves and embracing the fact that Ireland is indeed a Manchester United stronghold. I saw pictures coming out earlier on. Benjamin Sesko's holding a hurley, and so they're really embracing things. I know. I saw a brief interview with.
You have to give United credit with that. I mean, when it comes to our homeland, United have always been very deferential and very respectful of Ireland. I would say more so than Liverpool or Arsenal, and we know how popular they are in Ireland. But when I was a child growing up during the Troubles in Belfast, I was obsessed with United. And, they were one of the football clubs that were willing to come over to Windsor Park back then and actually play, games and have a presence there. So I think United have always done really well when it comes to Ireland.
Yeah, and I mean, like, you go back as far as Georgie Best. Like, Georgie was very much a keen advocate for that. He never spoke about North, South. He spoke about Ireland, and he spoke about the importance of Ireland to the football club and how much it meant to him whenever he came home. So that was always built in back. And obviously you go back as well to the days with Kevin Moran, when they didn't realise when he was dual playing with the GA and then with the Premier League, and they were horrified when they saw it.
It's funny, Shaun, like growing up in Belfast, obviously you're aware of the divide, but I wasn't aware of a national divide. I mean, Kevin Moran meant the same to me as Norman Whiteside. I mean, to me, they were from the same island, and I had a Protestant mother and a Catholic father. So, I had both, which was extremely rare in Belfast. But it was only when people reminded me constantly of the divide that I need to look at people differently. And now that I'm away, I mean, it seems so silly to me. It's I know, understand people have their own perspectives and views on it, but to me, if you were from the islands, you were the same.
We're all bleeding green, and
Mm.
the sooner people realise it, the better. But as I said to you beforehand, people are struggling out to even put diesel in their car. A lot of forecourts are empty out there at the moment. But
100%, mate. It's about human rights, but
it's about human rights.
people's
But like
identity being respected and all that.
what I
Everyone's identity respected.
absolutely 100%. And what I was saying to you with Leeds on Monday evening, I think it actually presents a pretty good opportunity for you on a rare occasion. I know Mondays are a pain in the arse, but an 8 o'clock kickoff makes it a bit easier for you to get to watch that. And I know you were engaging with a lot of listeners on social media asking about who they felt was an optimum 3 for next season. You got quite a response on that, but I'm curious about your optimum 3. And I'm not talking about you have unlimited budget. You know Manchester United are broke. So what is your midfield 3 for Manchester United next year?
I can't really answer that question. All I'm going to say generally, I don't like the framing that we need to get midfielders that complement Kobbie Mainoo. I think we need to get midfielders that challenge Kobbie Mainoo.
Mm-hmm.
That the one player we know is going to walk into the midfield 3 is Bruno Fernandes, right? So whoever the other 2 are, they have to be close in terms of ability. Because one of the things that we see with Carrick, I feel for him, he can see that United need legs in the last 15 minutes of a game. And his only option is bringing on Ugarte. So he knows he needs to bring other players in, but he also knows that it's a risk because the levels just drop so much when you bring in other players to replace the players that are on the pitch. He needs to have confidence that he can go to his bench and bring in a player and change a game. If the momentum of the game has changed, where we need to sit in, we need a player that's going to give his legs, but also maintain the levels that we're at. United don't have that, and you can see that. I mean, if you look at the games where United haven't performed well, the Bournemouth game, the Newcastle game, they're away from home, but also you can see United were playing for a draw at 2 each with Bournemouth. Michael Carrick was complaining about the 9 minutes of injury time because they just don't have the options from the bench to manage that part of the game. So United need probably 3 midfielders, Shaun. I don't think 2 is going to be enough. And looking for at the academy, I don't think anyone's particularly ready to make a stake for a claim. But they have other needs too. And is it realistic to expect 3 starting midfielders, a centre back, and a left winger at a minimum?
Yeah, but you see, this is the thing I was going to say to you, and you said it. It's really not realistic to expect 3 midfield signings to come in, unless you were looking at a summer where they weren't going to target anywhere else on the field.
Right.
And we know that they are going to be targeting other areas on the field. And something you said as well, and I think it needs to be a bit of both. I think there needs to be a merger. It's not necessarily about looking to bring in people who just solely complement Kobbie Mainoo, but I think you need to bring in people who can complement him and push him, because
Correct. That's what I mean. Yes.
so let's call a spade a spade.
Exactly.
This is a young footballer that we have
Correct.
nurtured through the academy, and he has the potential and
Exceptional
the
talent.
ability to go on, and he could, like, it's I have no idea how far he could go in the game. You look at it and the potential contractual extension that he's going to sign very, very soon, I'm told, it's going to bring him up to being 25, 26. And at that point, you could have a footballer who is dominating midfield throughout the Champions League in a perennial season. So I don't think it's about bringing in players that are going to push him out of the team per se and make him work harder. I think it's a bit of both. It's putting pressure on him to make sure that he applies himself every single day in training, but also bringing in footballers that can accommodate the skill set that he has. Surely that's the right way to go about this when you don't have the capacity to bring in 3 midfielders, a left winger, a central defender, because you just can't do it all in one window. So for me, there is going to be a marquee signing. And we know, everybody knows, the dogs in the street know that Elliot Anderson is the number 1 target. And if you can bring in Elliot Anderson into the football club, you immediately improve yourself. And it's as simple as that. But I think 2 is probably the basis of what we're looking at. And if we can get 3 somehow, then, I mean, I'd be over the absolute moon with that. Like,
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, people talk about Elliot Anderson being a done deal to Man City, which I don't agree with.
No, it's
I don't
not.
want to be repetitive about what I saw, with what I spoke about with James, but Pep Guardiola looks like a manager who's going to lead a football club in the next, maybe this summer, and I would, United are 6 points off Man City. I think that United are a better bet over the next 4 years.
I agree. And also, like as I said to you, Chelsea are playing City. A draw is a very likely result in a game like that, particularly when it's being played in London. So a win for Manchester United, a draw between Chelsea and City. What's the difference in the teams then? 4 points?
Yeah,
And
exactly. And again, this is United that haven't been able to strengthen in January. I
100%.
mean, there's no Pep Guardiola is now in the realm that everyone else is in, where there's no obvious individual talent that you can sign that's going to be better than everyone else. And so now it's about much more than just I'm going to go out and sign an Erling Haaland, who's such an obviously a better striker than anyone else is out there. Now you have to sign players and prove them and compete with Arsenal. Not a great team, are they? United should not be within 6 points of Man City. City looked like United looked like the last 2 years under Ferguson, where they were just doing the bare minimum and expecting to transition. But I think they thought Guardiola was going to leave last summer, because if you look at the way they've recruited, Shaun, they spent all their money 18 months ago in January, 14 months ago in January. They didn't really spend the summer before. They bought Gundogan and Mateus Nunes, I think, and then they spent all that money in January. Then they spent again this summer, last summer. That's not the recruitment strategy of Man City that we've seen in the past, where it's very methodical and laid out. And even their academy starting to suffer. They look like a football club that's in transition, and they need, to me, some type of long-term commitment from their manager. And if I'm Elliot Anderson, there's no guarantee of success. Plus, they have a punishment coming down the line somewhere.
I was just going to say to you, you're speaking about they're spinning like a club in transition, or that maybe they're going down a different route. It could also be perceivable that they're spinning like a football club who are anticipating something coming towards them and trying to get as many in as they possibly can, and it can come across maybe a little bit rash or a little bit erratic in what they're trying to achieve. And as you get up and walk away from the chair, I shall continue speaking to myself here. And speaking to you, kind listener.
I was listening to, I was getting the dog there, sorry.
That's okay. But no, what I'm saying is they look like a side that maybe are anticipating or bracing themselves for something to come. I want to ask you one more question, and this isn't something that we were speaking about previously. It wasn't something we were speaking online. It was something that I published recently. And there's been all of this talk about with the summer. I don't like going into it too much about potential incomings and outgoings, but you've had all this link with a new left winger to bolster the left-hand side. And people think money grows on trees.
Yeah.
I've put the prospect out there that Patrick Dorgu has thrown his name in the hat here, in terms of a potential option to be not only a utility player, but a rotation option on the left-hand side of that attack. And what's even more than this, if you take the 7 games he played that ran up before his injury, where he got the January Player of the Month, he played through the middle, he played on the right, he played in left midfield, and he played in the left wing. So is he not, after freeing up an option whereby instead of looking at bringing another left winger, that now we can maybe focus our attentions on defence and use him as the attacking option moving forward?
Yeah, I don't know. And I think one of Dorgu's biggest strengths is his biggest weakness is that we don't know what his best position is. All the top players in the world, we know what their best position is. And they don't have that moniker, that utility player applied to them.
He's only 21 though, Phil.
Yeah, no. But at some point, there's going to have to be specificity and say, this is what you are. And we play him consistently in his best position. I like him. And being a utility player has been such a valued asset to United, because they can play him in other key positions. And from that Newcastle game where he was played on the right on the first half against Newcastle, Amorim bizarrely moved him back into the position he was struggling in at the second half. He has looked a completely different footballer, and I want to see that young lad. There's an exceptional player in there. In his best position. I don't know what that is. The thing is, if you look at the best teams, Shaun, they aren't gambling with players in those positions. you know, Barcelona, you look at the quality they have in their front three. You need players in those three positions. Can Dorgu give United 15 goals a season? Because I think that's what you have to be able to give if you're going to play on the left or the right. This is also something that Ahmad's going to have to improve on, is your goal outlets in those positions. Because losing Casemiro, is 10 goals a season. Where are the goals coming from? We have to spread that out. I don't know is the answer. And we've seen a little bit of him over that month where he looked exceptional. But I don't think United are in a position to carry goals. And I think this is also important for Benjamin Sesko to have a player on the left back and left wing that complements the striker. You see this, I watch Chelsea and I watch Garnacho and I'm going, it must be infuriating to be a striker at Chelsea because Garnacho isn't interested in creating. He wants to get in against the last defender and shoot from impossible angles. That was one of the things that Rasmus Højlund struggled with. I think Sesko would struggle with it too. So I think that left-hand side, maybe Semenyo was the answer. I don't know, but I think they need a player that is their specialty.
Yeah, I mean, look, I don't think there's a.
Maybe I don't know.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's no specific answer for this. There's no guaranteed solution to what I'm saying, but the only sort of tailored bit of evidence that I have and proof on it is that in the last 7 games that he played, and they were all throughout that attacking 4 line, he had 5 goal contributions in 7 games, and I just want to see more of it, So I think when we speak about Carrick between here and the end of the season and in finishing off his dress rehearsal, I think it could potentially be a dress rehearsal for Patrick Dorgu as that left-sided attacker for the remaining fixtures of this season as well. And it would not surprise me if we see him in some sort of capacity against Leeds on Monday evening.
Then what do we do with Cunha?
Well, I don't think it's a bad option to have multiple players that you can play in multiple positions and that you've got options to come off the bench. I spoke about something probably about 2 years ago, and I was ridiculed for it. Absolutely. Like, I mean, in a positive way, mostly by people that I respect and, your standard bit of social. Talking about what?
Your girth.
Of course, always. But I actually referenced bringing in someone on a free like Dominic Calvert-Lewin 2 years ago. And as to how somebody like that can benefit a younger striker, that you're not paying transfer funds on him. And I'm not talking about it being Dominic Calvert-Lewin. I'm just saying a veteran option that doesn't expect to play every single game. And if you have those options in an ever-changing forward line, if you've got Cunha, if you've got Dorgu, you've got Mbeumo, you've got Ahmad, you've got Mason Mount, you've got Bruno, it's only a good thing that there's ample competition for positions and that you're not relying on the same players week in, week out.
I agree. I just don't think United are going to get a player of commensurate quality to Cunha. Cunha brings so much more than his goals to me. I think he's right now one of the most important players on the team, especially when you're protecting the lead. He has this wonderful ability off the ball to be able to kill a game. I agree with you right away. I think someone like a Danny Welbeck or someone of that caliber that would not want to start every week, but would get you 10 goals. Plus, maybe we'd stop getting our arses handed to us by Brighton. But I agree. If you can find someone like that, I think Cunha has. I mean, I love him as a player. I think that the way he switched over to the left. I mean, remember when Dorgu played in behind him at Villa away? Dorgu created that goal that Cunha scored by pressing it, so they could play. Dorgu could play in behind him in that position. I don't know. I think that whatever starting 11 United pick, I want to see Cunha in it. The player I have question marks over right now, and we've talked about this before, is
Brian Mbeumo.
Is Mbeumo's form a result of how Carrick's changed how United play? He's one player I'm really interested to see how this 3-week break has, because he's a brilliant football player in the right team, right? And he's been a brilliant signing. He started off well, scored against Arsenal, scored against City. He's probably just suffering from something that all human beings suffer from, that ebb and flow in their form. But I think he has. I'm not sure where does he play in a 4-3-3.
Well, I suspect what we will see on Monday evening, and you can tell me I'm wrong, but I suspect we're going to see a front four in some sort of a makeup, a dynamic of Cunha, Bruno, Ahmad, and Mbumo. And I think you're going to have Sesko and Dorgu coming off the bench on Monday evening.
Yeah, I will go along with that. I think we've said this before. Sesko comes off the bench because he can change the game.
Mm-hmm.
He need a different look, and every time he comes off the bench and changes the game, he does change the game, right? And so I would agree with that. I think that's how United will start.
So one last thing, and it's the $1 million question for anyone now as we get back onto the football. What are you expecting to see on Monday evening against Leeds? I mean, 3 points is surely the desire, but we need to see a really imposed attacking disposition right from the opening whistle, and try and put as many goals past them as you possibly can. Yeah,
United aren't in love with Leeds as a football club. Of course, I think you'll see intensity. I think you'll see purpose. I think the results will probably be kind to them this weekend. Whatever outcome between Chelsea and City, United are going to have an incentive going into Monday. They have something to play for. By all accounts, they could wrap up Champions League football by next weekend. So I expect to see a United with purpose, with intensity. I think it's the best Leeds team United have played in a long time. To be fair, that was Amorim's last game away. Should have beat Leeds away. I think United will beat them. I think that not confident they'll keep a clean sheet, but I'm looking at about 3-1.
Yeah, go along with that 3 or 4-1 and 3 points. And as you said, that little bit closer to Champions League football, as long as everything is working in our favour. And on that, ladies and gentlemen, I will say thank you all very, very much for your time, your attention. Please keep sending your questions through to us on socials, or even send them through an email at editor@theatre-of-red.com. We appreciate every single bit of support. If you're not already liked and subscribed, please do so. And continue to send your feedback. We'll welcome every single bit of it, good, bad, indifferent, or better. It's feedback, and we will do our very best to get back to it as much as we possibly can.
All right, folks, we'll see you after the Leeds game. All the best. Hope your mental health as well, your physical health as well. Much love to all of you. Cheers, Shaun.
See you, pal.
See you, man. Bye.